You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
We basically stand where those two Democrats in particular have made it clear that they are not willing to even defend black people's right to vote in this country. So we're so far beyond actually getting any tangible material benefits from this Democratic Party, particularly because of Sinema and Manchin. But it's so far gone, not only are we not getting tangible results, material benefits, but they won't even protect the right to vote in this country because they are there on behalf of quote unquote bipartisanship. But who's getting the good end of this deal? It's not black Americans. It's not people who are trying to fight for progress. It's the Republican Party. So they are here to serve the Republican Party. I don't care what letter they have by their name.
And that's what it boils down to. And I think, decision that Manchin made, Teresa, he can say, well, I tried. But how many times have you heard me say, Joe, show me the 10. You and Sinema keep talking about bipartisanship. Show me the 10 votes. They don't exist on the Republican side.
They don't, and honestly, they won't. But I know there's so many efforts that are taking place, right now for some of these civic organizations and social justice groups, and they really are trying. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if we can't find the votes, there's no way we can find the solutions. There's no way that the support and the financial resources that were necessary to get this going early on, that I believe if we may had a bit of an early start and maybe an earlier conversation about what needed to be done to actually get this across. For me, I just can't be too optimistic about this because I think the signs are there. It's just, I think, how do we move forward or maybe find another way to move this into another package bill probably makes sense at this point.
But even here, Mustafa, even if you put it in another bill, that's not the real issue here. The issue is, will Sinema and Manchin realize that unless they vote to end the filibuster, nothing is going to happen?
Exactly. I mean, the old adage, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And we keep doing this. We keep going through this same scenario in relationship to these very incredibly important issues. And we have politicians who won't listen to the people. 2/3 of folks in our country have said that this is something that they believe in and this is something that they support. So if our democracy is supposed to be tied to what people are asking for, then we are falling short. And, it's interesting that Senator Manchin continues, as you said, to talk about the 10. So let's just call out who the 10 are supposed to be, hypothetically. It's supposed to be Romney, Collins, Cassidy, Murkowski, Portman, Warren, Young, and then, of course, Capito, who's also from West Virginia, who we know is not going to support these types of things. So if you know that out of those 10 folks, and they continually have not been supportive on these particular issues that we're talking about, then you got to do something different. And that means you have to get serious about the filibuster. And you have the opportunity to actually change the dynamics around the filibuster. You could lower it down to 53 or 54 or 50, whatever the number is that you choose to do. But you've got to make sure that it's realistic, that it is actually going to be able to be utilized in a way that you can actually get these bills passed that are so critically important to the success of our country. And that's what sometimes people fail to realize when we have these conversations. We're talking about the success of our country. If Black folks and Latinx folks and Indigenous folks and Asian and Pacific Islander folks, and yes, let me call it out, lower wealth white folks, don't have the opportunity to fully participate in the civic process, then you are marginalizing a huge amount of folks who cannot be on the journey and making sure that they have better housing and that the environment is protected and that jobs become a reality in the places and spaces that they're often don't find fertile ground. So it all goes back to this vote, which is so critically important. And that's why Sinema and that's why Manchin and others should be doing the right thing. But of course, we are focused on Sinema and Manchin because they are supposed to be Democrats. They are supposed to care about our folks. And we're not seeing that at the level that's necessary for you to actually put together a strategic plan on how you help the country to actually move from, in many instances, a survival situation to an actual thriving situation.
What we are dealing with here, we are dealing literally with a major fundamental assault on democracy. And Ben, for the people out there, and look, I get it. I know there are people who are going to say, but this is why we voted. No, this is also the problem when one person can have that much power. This is also why, let me just go ahead and say it, why white Democrats should have got off their asses and did their job in Kentucky, in Maine, and in Iowa. See, at some point, black folks are not going to keep playing Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and you know, Captain America coming in and saving these folks. And so had those Democratic candidates actually won in those states, including Cunningham and North Carolina, we're talking right now about a 54-46 majority in the Senate, and then that would lessen the need to depend upon Sinema and Manchin.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, though, is that the Democratic Party still hasn't learned the lesson that, one, you need to trust black people. And two, you need to run some progressives. I'm thinking about Charles Booker in Kentucky. Like he did a phenomenal job in the primaries, and he didn't get the win, and neither did the Democratic Party. And so now we're stuck with this divide in the Senate that is so convenient for Democrats. Like I do want to point out, agree with you, Roland, in terms of what white Democratic voters should have done, but also to the extent that the Democratic leadership is using Manchin and Sinema as foils almost the ability to say, oh, well, we can't do it because of these two people. They allow them to play the bad guys while the Democratic leadership is still talking as though they want to get something done. But if they can't whip two senators into shape after all the years that they have on the Hill, what are they even there for?
Well, but here's the deal, though. I mean, I get your point, but Teresa, the reality is this here. A senator is essentially like a sovereign nation. You can sit here and try to put pressure on all you want to. They can decide whatever they want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the choice of the voter as an individual has to, think about when it comes to election day. So the Democratic Party, I think, has to start making these critical decisions when they, decide to put how many resources to a specific candidate, or thinking about the larger candidate as a whole, because that senator will be able to hold a lot of power. They're able to wield a lot of sway. And honestly, I just don't think it's an individual decision that they have. They are also thinking about a whole other options, I think, that is happening that we're just not seeing as of yet. So there's a reason why there's a stronghold here on this bill, but I also think there is a wider scope here that I think we'll see down the line.
Well, the thing here, Mustafa, is this is what happens. We keep saying why elections matter. This thing came down to 50-50 because John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock both won in Georgia. This is why the other states matter. This is why next year the Senate races in Wisconsin, North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania are going to be critically important, because that could determine the future as to whether or not Republicans either take control of the United States Senate. And also you have the Mark Kelly race in Arizona and Raphael Warnock in Georgia. So you're talking about 6 to 7 Senate races that will determine if Republicans take control of the Senate, which then means Mitch McConnell is back in power, which means no bills are going to get passed, and he's going to control Supreme Court justices. And let's be real clear, if Republicans do take over the United States Senate, I guarantee you Mitch McConnell will, if anything happens with the Supreme Court justice, he will let that position sit vacant for 2 years until the election. He will do it.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you called that out. First of all, I agree with everything that Ben and Teresa just said. You got to seize the moment, right? You have no idea what's going to happen in the future, but you can plan for the future. And, a lot of folks have been saying, well, they're a bit resistant into actually doing something around the filibuster, because maybe, when Republicans come back in, that they will then, utilize that and do even more nefarious things than they have already done. I'm glad you called out 2022, because the beauty of this show is that not only do we talk about what's happening in the moment, but also hopefully trying to get you to think about what's coming in the future. So we know that there are 34 seats, Senate seats, that will be up in 2022. 20 of those will be Republican seats. 14 of them will be Democratic seats. And if you actually do what's right in this moment, you don't have to worry about the outcome, because the odds are that if you really get in, make the investments, that you'll be able to actually garner some additional seats. Now, as we've talked about on this show, then that means that you got to finally start making sure that you are properly funding those on-the-ground organizations and stop chasing certain votes that you never get and actually build upon the base that you have. So you got an opportunity to do the right thing in this moment, seize this moment, get the right types of bills passed, and then you can actually grow your numbers so that you can continue this throughout the decade and actually make the change that is so critically needed and being asked for across the country.
Well, now the question is, what is Senator Chuck Schumer will do next? He made it clear he was going to put this vote to the test, to test Republicans, to see where they stand. Now we know. So, Bean, where do we go from here?
Where we go from here is we see if they can actually get enough pressure to move something around these voting rights. I mean, this is the whole ball game, Roland. We're really debating over whether or not the Democratic Party is going to be able to secure their own win. This is like politics 101 for them. If their voters can't make it to the polls and their voters can't vote without the suppression tactics by the Republican Party, then the Democratic Party can forget about having any majorities in the foreseeable future. And this is quite the shame. It's a constitutional crisis, quite frankly, because we will be ruled by the tyranny of the minority of the Republican Party, which means the tyranny of the minority of old white conservative people in this country.
Teresa, where we go now?
I'm still on the moving forward type of mindset. So I'm focused on special elections right here in Pennsylvania, and I'm also focused that actually needs to be a talking point about how many senators we need to actually move forward so we don't go into this predicament again. So I'm focused on forward, and I'm focused on other states that are willing to put the right senators in the right position so we can make the right decisions at the time we need it the most.
Mustafa, where do we go from here?
Yeah, you invest, you educate, and you mobilize on the ground inside of the states. And you make sure you're building a strong set of infrastructure there so that you can make sure that you're helping candidates to get stronger, and then you hold them accountable once they get in office. And if you're willing to do that, then you have a pathway forward. The politics is what it is on Capitol Hill. It is going to play out the way that it plays out. We can stay engaged in the process and make sure that we're getting new sets of voices who are there to make sure that we are broadening the narrative of what America can be and making sure that it's not just a narrative, but that we're actually putting real action behind the words that politicians often share with us.
Folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. He talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into it and you was doing this just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Mark messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares are something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. Soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. Okay. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a full page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com, essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. And then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend.